Hey, everyone! Welcome back to the channel. It's your favorite coin enthusiast here, and today we have a special topic that's been on the minds of many collectors and coin lovers alike: the Kennedy half dollar, specifically the 1974 edition. So, if you're holding on to one of these bad boys and wondering about its circulated value, you're in the right place. But before we dive in, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you never miss a future coin breakdown. Let's get into it. Alright, here it is, the Kennedy half dollar from 1974. This coin is quite interesting in terms of its history, its significance, and of course its value today. Whether you're a seasoned collector or just starting to dive into the world of numismatics, understanding the value of this coin can be incredibly helpful, especially if you're thinking of adding it to your collection or possibly selling it. So, let's break it down. Let's start with a little background on the Kennedy half dollar. The coin was introduced in 1964 to honor President John F. Kennedy, who had tragically been assassinated in 1963. Initially, it was struck in 90% silver, but by 1971, the U.S. Mint switched to a 40% silver composition, which brings us to the 1974 version of this coin. So, while the 1974 Kennedy half dollar is no longer made of pure silver, it still carries a lot of sentimental value and is a classic piece of American coinage. Now, the 1974 Kennedy half dollar has the iconic portrait of John F. Kennedy on the obverse, designed by Gilroy Roberts. The reverse features the traditional American bald eagle, designed by Frank Gasparo, holding a shield with 13 stars above it, representing the original 13 colonies. Now, let's talk about its value in circulated condition. The 1974 Kennedy half dollar was produced in high quantities, so it's actually not all that rare. In fact, there were over 100 million of these coins minted. The large mintage means that, unless you have a coin in excellent condition or with some unique feature, its value in everyday circulation isn't as high as, say, a rare date or a coin with low production numbers. For a typical 1974 Kennedy half dollar in circulated condition, meaning it's seen some wear, but it's still relatively intact, you're generally looking at a value of around $2 to $3. That's primarily because of its metal content and the fact that it's still a widely available coin. Now, keep in mind that the value can fluctuate slightly depending on the coin's condition. But as with any coin, condition plays a huge role in its value. Let's break down the grading scale for a second. When it comes to circulated coins like this one, the lower grades, like good or fair, will typically fetch around that $2 to $3 range. However, if you happen to have a coin that is in better shape, say, in fine or very fine condition, its value could be closer to $5 to $7. Now, if you have an uncirculated 1974 Kennedy half dollar, meaning it looks practically brand new, without any signs of wear or scratching, you could potentially see values anywhere from $8 to $15. But remember, uncirculated coins from the 1970s, especially from the 1974 year, are harder to find in pristine condition, so don't expect to see this value in your average collection. And let's not forget about the special varieties and errors. While the 1974 Kennedy half dollar is generally pretty standard, there have been some errors from time to time. One popular variety to look out for is the 1974 D double die obverse, which features a noticeable doubling on the lettering of the word Liberty, and sometimes on other parts of the obverse. This can add significant value to a coin, with such varieties sometimes selling for $20 or more depending on the extent of the doubling. So, if you come across a 1974 Kennedy half dollar that seems a little bit different than the usual, it's worth checking for any errors or anomalies. It could be the jackpot you didn't expect. Now, let's talk about what affects the value of the 1974 Kennedy half dollar. The two biggest factors are mintage and condition. We already know the mintage was pretty high for 1974, so unless your coin is in pristine condition or has a special error, the value won't be too high. But other factors come into play as well. Market trends, collector demand, and even the price of silver can influence the price of any given coin. So, if you're holding on to a 1974 Kennedy half dollar, it might be worth checking the market from time to time to see if values go up. So, there you have it, the Kennedy half dollar from 1974. It may not be the rarest or most valuable coin out there, but it's a beautiful piece of American history, and it holds a special place in the hearts of many collectors. Whether it's for your collection or just a fun piece to keep in your pocket change, it's always great to know what your coins are worth. The Kennedy half dollar was first minted in 1964, just months after the assassination of President John F. Kennedy in November 1963. The U.S. Mint decided to honor the late president by placing his image on a new half-dollar coin. The first design, featuring Kennedy's portrait on the obverse, front, was created by artist Gilroy Roberts. The reverse, back, of the coin was designed by Frank Gasparo and features the United States traditional bald eagle holding a shield. Initially, the Kennedy half-dollar was struck in 90% silver and 10% copper. This made the coin valuable not just for its face value, but also due to the precious metal content, especially with silver prices fluctuating in the 1960s. However, the U.S. Mint was concerned about a silver shortage, and in 1971, they reduced the silver content to 40%, with the remainder being copper. This new composition continued through the 1970s and even into the early 1980s. In 1974, the Kennedy half-dollar was still being minted with this 40% silver composition. The year 1974 marked the 10th anniversary of the coin's release, and it was part of the era of the coin's transition from a precious metal-based coin to a more common, less expensive one. Despite this reduction in silver content, the Kennedy half-dollar continued to hold significant symbolic value, reflecting the nation's respect for President Kennedy and his legacy. The 1974 Kennedy half-dollar was produced in 3 minting locations: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. The Philadelphia Mint produced coins without a mint mark, while the Denver Mint marked their coins with a D, and the San Francisco Mint produced coins primarily for proof sets, marked with an S. However, there were no special commemorative issues in 1974, and most of the coins were intended for general circulation. By the 1970s, the popularity of the Kennedy half-dollar began to decline. Fewer people were using coins in everyday transactions, and the government stopped producing the coin in significant quantities for general circulation. Instead, most coins were sold to collectors. In 1979, the Kennedy half-dollar's composition was again changed to a clad version, meaning the coin had a copper-nickel core with no precious metal content, further decreasing its value as a bullion coin. Despite the reduced value of the 1974 Kennedy half-dollar in circulation, it remains a key part of numismatic history. Collectors value it not only for its iconic design but also for its role in commemorating a significant moment in U.S. history: the death of one of the most revered American presidents, John F. Kennedy. Thanks so much for watching today's video. If you learned something new or enjoyed the breakdown of this coin, don't forget to hit that like button, leave a comment down below if you have any questions, and subscribe if you're not already part of the coin family. And as always, keep your eyes peeled for those rare finds. You never know what might be hiding in your spare change. Until next time, happy collecting!